Hello, everyone. Privilege to pain. Most of us here work in tech. For most of us, life was great, even through much of the pandemic. We thought we had it made until we got that notice. And to add insult to injury, they even took our laptops away. Thus, the title of my talk, You've Been Laid Off. Now what? And what you can do next. It's also what you can do to prepare. If you want a copy of the slides, here's the URL for you. If you miss it, keep watching. You'll see it periodically at the bottom of many of the slides. I'll highlight my story in a bit, but first, a little bit of gratitude. I'm thankful to the people at Nginx, not only for hiring me, but also for giving me a chance. Based on my background, this could very well be the best job of my life. I can say I love this job. And I hope y'all can come out of this with a job that you enjoy as much as I do. For the record, this presentation is solely my own work. So let me move on to this short message from my employer. We will continue to offer our open source projects under accepted open source licenses. I'm currently working on moving the remainder of our documentation to an open source repository. If you've gone through a similar transition, I'd love to hear more from you, especially if other parts of your company uses regular proprietary software. Time to talk about myself. I've been a tech writer for the past decade. Before becoming a tech writer, I wrote a few books, including these two, one for the Red Hat Certified Engineer exam and something called Linux Annoyances for Geeks. You're welcome to check my credits on Amazon. I've been a Linux user since 1999. Red Hat 5.1, not Enterprise, the original Red Hat, was my first distro. It was before Anaconda became a thing. And yes, as my face and my gray hair suggests, I'm older. I don't advertise my age. I limit my LinkedIn to more recent experiences. More than once or twice, I'm ready for an interview. I turn on the Zoom and I see reactions in people's faces. Not what I wanted. While age discrimination is not legal in most countries, it still happens, even subconsciously. It's life. And with that, I think some of y'all can empathize with my job history. After working for a single startup for 7 years, I thought it was time for a change. In any case, I started collecting my credentials in a Git repo. The process took me 3 months. The market was decent. A year and a half later, I was recruited. This was the spring of 2021. Everyone was hiring like mad. Then in January of 2023, the problems hit home. After draining a bottle of scotch, I got to work. I updated my Git repo. I put out 23 serious applications, got interviews with 8 companies, and accepted an offer 53 days after my layoff. But the company wasn't the best fit for me, so I started looking again in the fall. And that might have been a mistake. I was laid off again. I had to go back to my playbook. This time, it really worked. After 15 serious applications, interviews with 6 different companies, I actually had 2 offers, and I love where I'm working now. Speaker coaches have told me it's good to get people involved, but since I can't see my audience, let me just say I'd ask you all to stand up when I called out your job function and ask you all about what you do. In any case, in tech, being a geek gives us empathy for our users, at least for most of us who are involved in B2B software. And for a while, we thought we'd be employed forever, but life and the tech economy got in the way. So many of us are searching, and in many cases, searching again. A job search is a challenge. Part of the challenge, showing empathy when you're the one in need. I mean, really, in this market, with things like ghost jobs, ghosting, and so on, who wants to show empathy for the hiring company? But look at the search from HR's point of view. Look at the interviewer's point of view. If you're the one hiring, what do you want? What are you looking for? Before we answer that question, there's a sequence of events. Here are 11 steps after a layoff based on my experience. I haven't read any of the recent job search books, so these are just things to consider. You don't need to do them all, but that's what worked for me. Yes, when you get your layoff notice, you can negotiate. In theory, you should be able to negotiate everything. What you can negotiate depends on legalities, and I'm not a lawyer. But from my own personal experience, the one thing that's easier to negotiate in the US, and this may be a US only thing, is extended medical insurance. What's easiest to negotiate in Australia? I don't know. Colleagues I've worked with in Europe, they've gotten together and they've worked with legal counsel. But the basic point is you can find something that comes from a different budget, it's more negotiable. The other thing is the corporate laptop, especially if you're a remote worker. Depending on the age and uniqueness of your equipment, your former employer may have trouble repurposing your laptop. In other words, it'd be easier for them to let you have it, at least at a discount. Why would a company negotiate? They want your silence. They want your agreement to avoid bad mouthing them. Here's a sad one, at least for me, applying for unemployment. I don't know the rules in Australia, but this is the one place where I do what people call the spray and pray application. When I click the easy apply button, that gives me data to provide the authorities who grant unemployment to keep giving me unemployment. With that stated, I'll move on to the next item. If there's a chance that you can get your old job back, great. There are a few of us who are in unions. And with the right kind of contract, it sometimes happens with layoffs, that they may call you back to work. But in most cases in tech, it's best to accept the situation and focus. After my first layoff, a mentor told me if I'm angry about the layoff, wait. Anger shows up in interviews. If you're searching while you're angry, you're wasting your time. In addition, job searches are a full-time job. I typically spend 8 to 9 hours per day on the search. Your first step is to set up your credentials, as suggested earlier. I do it in a Git repository. It gives you a baseline to start your application. In mine, I have, of course, a resume, a list of work that I'm proud of. For me, that's books. For you, that may be projects published in Git. A README to point to all the files I have in my repository. A list of samples. As a technical writer, many companies ask for writing samples. I have them already. You may have a portfolio. You may have a list of Git accomplishments, a list of professional work, such as presentations. And then for each serious application, I clone and customize that repo, which I share with the hiring company if possible. Actually, as a tech writer, I've built my own website based on work that I'm proud of. I can use it, because I set up the original website as open source. And yes, for myself, I use a standard copyright because I don't want anybody to copy my credentials and try to use that to apply to places. So it helps me on two levels. I can show the work that I've done. I can display what I can build for potential future employers or even my current employer. Yes, there are stories out there about people who've shared a dark green Git profile and gotten hired. I think that's weird. In my opinion, showing your Git profile is not enough. You want to show how you are or could be that 10x developer that everyone wants based on what you've actually done. I can't emphasize it enough. It's your opportunity to tell your story, how you succeeded, how you helped companies that you've worked for before. So you've made a whole bunch of contributions. So what? We work in software, at least most of us here at Everything Open. Tell yourself, recount things. What are you good at? What kind of software have you worked? Here are some typical examples. And then go further. You don't just know Kubernetes. You can tell the world what you've actually done with Kubernetes. It's good to ask for help. It's good to appeal to your network, but you need to go further. Networks today are large. I'm assuming that you use that proprietary tool known as LinkedIn. I'm connected to like 1,500 people. That sounds great, but how many of them remember what I do? I look at some open to work posts and I think, really? You love the company that laid you off? It sounds nice to share positive experiences about the company that laid you off. In fact, it's a good sign that you've let go of the anger. But seriously, be credible. And do you include the open to work banner? That's a subject for some discussion. Personally, I haven't done it. I've written posts that I'm open to work, and then I sell myself. But without the explanation, open work to me is not enough. So what did I put in my LinkedIn announcement? I had a headline. I can help you create better docs and domain knowledge. I put that on top of my LinkedIn profile. I added my domain knowledge under my name. It's what people see when they click my name on LinkedIn. I describe my expertise. I created follow-up posts on each of these topics because that's what I've worked with in the past. From these posts, I developed an elevator pitch. I remind people who've met me what they like about me. I had stories that I could then use in applications and then in interviews. A good LinkedIn recommendation is effectively a public reference. The best recommendations come from people who've worked directly with you at your company, especially where you were laid off, believe it or not. Ideally, you want recommendations from coworkers and managers. If they come from where you work, it's a demonstration that the layoff wasn't your fault. And soon after your layoff, it's an ideal time. Bluntly, people are feeling guilt. They're more willing to help. To play into that, you want to draft recommendations for others to sign. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to help you. And if you can offer to write recommendations in return, great. Not only are you returning the favor, you're getting practice making pitches for others, demonstrating how you're a team player. With those recommendations in hand, you can start to feel some confidence. You can start some follow up posts. In these posts, I've shared what I've done in detail. I'll write about my experiences, skills that I can bring to a new employer. I've created all kinds of posts. This is my example story of what happened while I was a tech writer when I took sysadmin's responsibilities, which sounds weird to a lot of people, but it's a memorable story. I do a lot of networking. I have like 1,500 connections on LinkedIn. Do all these people remember me? They look at an open to work banner and think, oh my God, another one. I'd like to help. But what does Mike do again? With the work you've done getting recommendations, with follow up posts, you should now have an elevator pitch for your contacts, as well as for everyone else who might help you get a new job. Remember, it's all about the empathy that you can show for your contacts. They want to help you. They want to know what to say before they introduce you to hiring managers. I've done a lot of networking with others who've been laid off. Some have asked, hey, Mike, why surround yourself with others who've been laid off? First, layoffs are a trauma. Support groups of all kinds bring people together, people who've shared the same trauma. Next, if you do join or start a group, that's your chance to make sure there are ground rules. You might even find an appropriate code of conduct in this conference. Most important with all these groups is confidentiality. These groups are essentially chat groups. Use a group that your former coworkers know. And as for current employees, it's nothing personal. I say don't include anyone who's still employed with the company. It helps to keep things confidential. Some companies already have a community infrastructure. You might find an existing group of alumni, of people who are no longer with the company. Get to know them. They typically include people who can help you in your search. Here's what I've done in one such case. I asked for a dedicated room I could make private. Such groups typically already have job posts for alumni, from alumni who want to hire others who once worked for that company. They're a great source for referrals. In a few cases, being a alumnus gives you an intro to the hiring manager, and you know how valuable that is. I'm not a social media maven, but imagine a hiring manager who watches the community Slack. Imagine what they think when a potential new employee shares solutions. They'll start thinking, here's what that potential new employee can do for coworkers. If you go further and endorse others with substance, they'll know you're someone who's helpful. On the other hand, if in public forums you start abusing companies, I see a lot of those kinds of messages on LinkedIn and various social media sites. Potential hiring managers are going to look at you with fear. And that's not something you want if you're looking for them to hire you. They might think they'll be the next target for your abuse. I've been fortunate that I know a few hiring managers and they know me. You don't need to know everyone. Yes, this is a difficult market. When you see someone else who's hiring, look at their company page on LinkedIn. You'll see if you're connected to anyone at that company. If you do, contact them personally, privately. They may have missed your announcement. If someone else you know is connected with that company, ask for their help. If not, take the extra step, do some sleuthing. do what you need to do to get the inside scoop. LinkedIn can be useful in research. If you have lots of contacts, sometimes it gives you information on second level contacts. The ideal with all of this to get the inside scoop is to set up an informational interview. And when you look at a company and find a second level or a first or second level contact, this is how things will appear. Next, I urge everybody to customize the application. And I go quite far with this. I mean, only 23 applications in 50 some odd days. Yes, I customized. At times, I've given people tips on where to apply with contact information for people I know. I'll spend maybe 30, 60 minutes in research, seeing if the skills and, if possible, the personalities are a match. And a couple of times, a half hour later, after telling my friend, hey, here's a good thing you might want to apply to with lots of data, I'll sometimes hear back with, thanks, I applied. After that, I get discouraged. If they're not going to spend the time researching the company, I feel like I've wasted my time. What I hope is that you all customize your applications, every serious application. So, how did I get there? This is where the real work begins, where you study the job description to make sure what you submit, your resume, your cover letter, and so on, matches the job description. This is your chance to be personal, as in tell a personal story about how you helped the previous companies where you've worked before. This takes work. Do your research. Find what the target company is looking for. For me, this means 4 to 8 hours per application and sometimes a lot more. And yes, I even did the 10 interviews with that well-known open source software company. That was like a 40-hour process, but I think that was well worth the time. If you're applying to a company that does open source, you should be able to find repositories. I frequently contributed to open source docs in support of an application. When I see stories of job searches, here's what I see. People putting out generic resumes. If you have a generic resume and no cover letter, you're like that archer who tries to shoot at a bullseye while wearing a blindfold. Take the point of view of the hiring company. Empathize with that hiring manager. Unless you're really, really, really lucky, your application is going to look like this. Or even worse, like it's coming from a secondhand car salesman. It's not what you want. Whereas if you do your homework, if you measure twice, if you study your target, if you put that info into a cover letter, if you include a portfolio that solves problems for your target employer, you'll at least have a chance of getting to an interview. Next, be ready to share your schedule. As I suggested, a job search is a full-time search, full-time job. You want a schedule. Set up open hours on the calendar, 9 to 5 or whatever are normal working hours for you. Sync it to a tool like Calendly. Many startups are small. If they want to interview you, they may ask, when are you free for an interview? If you share a Calendly, you look more professional. And in your schedule, do block off time. 2 reasons. You need time to focus on your applications. And if a potential future employer sees that you're not 100% free, They might think, oh my God, they might be interviewing with someone else. Now for a topic with some controversy. Should you do more than the minimum required in your application? I think you already know my answer. Yes, I said 4 to 8 hours. This question addresses when you should go further. Many companies pick new employees from their open source contributors. We're at the Everything Open conference. It's an open source conference. We can contribute. Most of us know how to contribute. When I contribute, I show what I do best. For me, it's creating clear documentation. For you, it might be removing the spaghetti from code, creating a unit test, whatever you do best. It might be for naught, but it also keeps your skills fresh. Now, hopefully, you need to prepare for your interviews. My points are beyond the usual interview questions. A few slides ago, I suggested that you write about what you're proud of, what you've done well. Now you can use that writing. Now you can reread those posts. That'll help you prepare. Prepare what? Prepare your pitch. With the work you've done already, you'll have material for your follow-ups. Repeating an earlier slide, you'll now have stories that you can prepare for your interviews, stories that you can prepare with confidence. Are you ready to present them? If you're ready to speak about, your experience at conferences or in front of interviewers, then you're ready. One more tip, prepare a closing statement, essentially an elevator pitch on why a company should hire you, but that closing statement should incorporate good points from the interview. Yeah, that sounds like something a lawyer would do, or I guess you might call it a solicitor. But heck, when you're talking to an interviewer, you're talking to people who will judge you. You want to make it as easy as possible to find reasons to hire you. And when I've been the interviewer, I've had to prepare reports, what I thought about the candidate. I'd start that report right after the end of the interview. If a candidate, and this happened a couple times, had a closing statement for me, it helped me create my report. If you can help the interviewer by highlighting your stories, that person is more likely to help you. After every interview, you should follow up. Even if they rejected you on the spot, say thank you. There are cases where companies reject a candidate and then change their minds. Believe me, I know. Interviewers at many companies are overloaded. I've interviewed with companies who've talked to a dozen candidates in a week. If you talk to a dozen people for the same job in a week, would you remember everyone? To help them remember me, I follow up. I thank the interviewer. I'll contact that person in any reasonable way, sometimes via LinkedIn. I'll remind them about one or two things good things specifically, that we talked about, and maybe address any concerns. But be careful after that, unless you have new information. Following up is like asking a potential new employer, are we there yet? And that's not the image you want. I hope you all get to this step. If you want to take any offer, that's okay. Many of us are in difficult situations. But if you have the courage to negotiate, be willing to be silent for a while. The person who speaks first gives more. When searching, don't just use lists from traditional job search sites. Here are a couple of other examples. One thing that might interest a lot of you, I know OWASP, the Open Worldwide Application Security Project, they're starting work on their top 10 web application security risks for this year. Dozens of companies participate, potential employers. Their Slack has job listings as well. Y Combinator, they include a lot of startups. They're small startups. They may or may not be suitable for you, but if you're interested in that kind of thing, be aware many of these startups don't even have an HR, so they wouldn't have a clue on how to write a job description. Remember, you're the one asking for help. To do it right, you've got to show empathy for the hiring manager, for the interviewer, for HR. If you're there interviewing in person, for anyone who's helped you. You've looked for help everywhere, but remember, you're making a sales pitch. You're selling yourself, and the best way to do that is with empathy. You want to get into the heads of hiring managers. They're hiring because they want to solve problems, and you're showing them that you can solve those problems. I'm repeating this point just to make sure it gets in your heads. You need an elevator pitch. This can also be the closing statement that I talked about earlier. Show that you empathize with the problems presented by the hiring manager. And if you empathize, you know what help that person needs. You know the issues of the target company. You've shown you've thought about that company. Even better, a company that hires you can start thinking, this is what this candidate can do in their first months. And with that, let me say thanks, good luck. Here's the link to my slides and a QR code for my LinkedIn. Thank you very much, and time for questions.
So do we have any questions for Mike? Anyone? I think they're all trying to take it all in, Mike, so it's but there's plenty of people in the room. Hang on, I'll quickly turn the camera for you so you can see them all. There you go. Can you see?
Oh, this is great. Yay.
Well, actually, I'll hand you over. Oh, there is one question.
Hi. In your experience as a tech writer, like it seems like you've been through a couple of layoffs. Like, are tech writers seen as a luxury that gets laid off earlier than other roles, or is it harder? Is the market harder for tech writers at the moment? I'm not like I think tech writers are underappreciated. Is maybe what I was trying to say there. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing the
Oh.
question. It sounded like it related to whether tech writers were considered a luxury or.
Underappreciated. Like companies often make poor decisions when they are laying off, and they don't think about the long term. So I was wondering if the market is hard for tech writers right now.
I think the underappreciated strength of tech writing is being able to help a company put together a sales pitch. Companies with excellent documentation, their sales engineers start with their documentation and use it to sell their products. If you can demonstrate that you've created documentation that can help a sales engineer sell their product, that can only help you.
Yeah. Okay.
Any more questions? Well, thank you very much for your presentation, Mike. Very interesting. Everybody could just say their appreciation.
Thanks so much. Just a quick coda. As I was telling Sarah, I created and gave this presentation basically to give back because there felt like dozens and maybe hundreds of people who helped me in my search. And I hope you can do the same for your fellow colleagues.